ladies and gentlemen, it is I, Emily Sophia, and I'm here to have a little chat with you guys about the second official episode of Gotham. So, quick items of business. Number one, I shall first and foremost break down for you in as vivid detail as I can the episode as a whole, giving you my reactions and analyses along the way, and there will be lots of spoilers in that. At the end of the video, if I have enough juice in my camera, I'm going to discuss with you guys, there was a new trailer that was recently launched that gives us kind of a broad scope picture of the rest of the season and some new villains that we're going to see along the way. So I want to briefly address that with you guys because I'm excited about it. And also, for those of you who missed my review of the Gotham premiere, there's a link in the description, as well as a link to my other newest video, which is an original song that I wrote. So if you want to check out a bit of my musical side, there's that for your entertainment and viewing and or listening pleasure as well. So, like I said, spoilers. Here we go. Let us get into things. First, I want to say that I'm really psyched. Having just watched this episode, I feel a lot of momentum for the rest of the season. I feel like this is a series that I can get behind and that I will be glad to have invested myself in. And you don't always get a sense of that from a premiere episode. If you think about like planes and vectors and things like that, if you've got a single point on a graph, it doesn't really indicate any direction. It doesn't necessarily tell anything other than that here is a position, here is a place. And then when you make another dot, another point on the chart, and you draw a line between them, you make a vector, which indicates direction and other things of that nature. So getting a little mathematical. I'm not a math person, so I hope that I explained that in a decent way. This was something that my brother actually said, and I wanted to share it with you guys because I thought it was really cool. So the second episode of a pilot season is absolutely critical in that it's gotta give us its mission statement. It's gotta tell us where are we going, why do we want to go forward, especially with a show like Gotham where so many of us know so much about the DC Batman universe. Why this show? What role does it play and why should we be watching it? And I think that it was summed up very nicely by Falcone in his little exchange with Fish Mooney at her club, where he talks about the power vacuum that's been created by the death of Bruce Wayne's parents. And he describes the Falcone family and the Wayne family as, quote, pillars of the same house. And now that one of those pillars has fallen, who is going to bring the house back up? Or are things just going to descend into utter chaos as everyone clamors to become that new pillar? And perhaps they will erect a brand new temple and completely revoke the old system, you know? So I think that seeing Gotham the show as a power struggle, I really like the idea of that because it creates a lot of narrative possibilities. There are a lot of stories that can take place, and it connects all these villains whose origin stories we're going to see along the way in how they relate to each other, because it all comes back to a little orphan boy and not only the loss that he experiences and how that transforms him ultimately into the Dark Knight later on, but ooh, hello sunshine! But then we also get to see how everyone else reacts to the absence of the Waynes and just sort of the catalyst it is in this society and its reorganization, its transformation. So I really like the way that was summed up. I kind of view that as like a thesis statement for at least the season, if not the show itself, providing that it does well enough to continue on, and I'm really hoping that it does now because I see where they're going with this and I like it and I can get behind it. Now this episode as a whole, I really enjoyed it. There are a few kind of loose ends, you know, we don't really get to figure out who it was the doll maker, the guy who was behind the child kidnappings and who needed the recruits for whatever. We didn't really get to see who that guy was, and I don't know if he's going to, he or she, I do suppose, or, you know, anywhere on the gender spectrum. I don't know if perhaps the doll maker might reemerge later on. The one problem with this show is that it runs the risk of falling into the case of the week format that so many crime dramas do, where you've got these central characters, but they're constantly focused on bad guy over here, bad guy over there, and just all these little villains doing their evil things. And while that's not necessarily not interesting, but at the same time, that's the reason why I dropped off the face of the earth with so many shows like Criminal Minds, because you could just hop in at any point in the season, anywhere, anytime, and there wasn't really a very cohesive, overarching narrative. At least for me, it wasn't really that impactful. So I hope that the show remains dedicated to its central stories, and that these little cases of the week that are inevitably going to pop up, that they're going to help further the characters, create developments in the story, the characters themselves, and then how the story changes when the characters change, okay? So all that aside, that's just kind of my spiel. I'm gonna specifically talk about things that occurred in the episode now, kind of walk you guys through it, refresh your memories. So we begin the episode with Bruce hovering his hand over the fire. And I think that something I really liked about this episode was the glimpse that we got to have at pre-Batman Alfred. Because at this point in time, he is filled with a rage, as is Bruce, you know, as they are left in the wake of his parents' death. Alfred is tasked with the the immense responsibility of raising this young boy who has at his disposal immense power and resources and wealth, and what path is he going to choose as he deals with his emotional, psychological trauma in losing his parents. So he's quite full of anger when he finds Bruce testing himself and delving into the darkness in this way, because I think that he feels at once responsible for the well-being of this boy, but then we find out later on in the episode that Bruce's parents specifically told him to let Bruce choose his own path. That's really not a very helpful parenting manual to leave a caretaker with. And I think that Alfred really freaking struggles with that. And that's why he turns to Jim Gordon time and time again, because he's like, I don't freaking know what to do for this kid. He has so much rage and he can't fully get past that. He wants someone who Bruce respects to guide him towards the light, because he sees this kid dancing with the dark, and he's not exactly about that, not quite so into it, okay? And then after that, of course, we have the whole Mayor's Homeless Outreach Project goons come in and sedate and kidnap the homeless children. And this is where we get the focus of the episode on Selina Kyle, the name of the episode itself, and the ways that she tries to keep out from under their thumb. And then ultimately the power that she wields as someone possessing a rather intimate knowledge of whodunit with Bruce's parents, okay? So, and what I liked about the two goons working for the doll maker, I do not remember their names or remember if they were actually stated, but they kind of brought in a certain element of campiness that we saw in some of the classic Joel Schumacher and Tim Burton Batman films, that kind of silly, theatrical, over-the-topness that makes the dark and brooding world of Batman so fun. So while things took a very dark turn with their taking these children for undisclosed and probably nefarious purposes, well, that's really dark. The characters themselves were just really silly and outlandish, and just the way that they spoke was extremely off-putting, and I just really enjoy that eccentricity and weirdness, and I think that it makes things kind of fun. I might have referred to this in my past review of the Gotham premiere, but what I like about this show is that it straddles this fine line between the campiness of some of the old films and old Batman portrayals, and then the dark, gritty realism of, say, the Christopher Nolan trilogy. It seems to incorporate both of those worlds without necessarily like oscillating back and forth in between them. All these things are kind of fuse together, so you feel like you can laugh and raise your eyebrows and at once get, you know, punched in the soul. That's a good thing. I like getting to experience those feelings. I'm sorry about the weird changing light. I live in the Pacific Northwestern part of the United States, and the sky does whatever it damn well pleases. Anyways, so, another problem with the show is that everyone says crap too much. That's just so illusion breaking for me. When these street kids are saying that nobody in the government or working for the city gives a crap about them, it's like, but what do they really not give, you know? It's just, I understand television and the rules, but that was just really funny to me. Everybody just kept saying crap, and I'm just like, okay. Try again. Anyways, so meanwhile, the Penguin is hitchhiking his way to God knows where, having been told by Jim Gordon, who fake disposed of him, to never return to Gotham. But word on the street is he is going to do exactly that and sees himself as, not necessarily a savior of Gotham, but he sees himself as integral to its future. As we see in that season-wide trailer. There's a link in the description to that if I didn't say so already. Anyways, I really like the way that the Penguin is being portrayed in the series, because again, it's that eccentric, ridiculous, outlandish weirdness. But then at the same time, he's so genuinely creepy because he feels like a real threat and he just likes to hurt people. Right now, I'm not exactly sure what his overall game plan is, or if he intended to possibly befriend and use the guys that he briefly carpools with, but he does end up trapping one of them in the trailer that he rents and creates a nice serial killer interior decorating that we get to witness. You know, it's the quintessential part of the disintegrating mind, you know? Yeah, I think the actor does a really great job, and he just has, I don't know how to put to words what it is about the Penguin that's so beguiling and creepy, but he also has sort of like the doll maker goons. He just has this weird language and way of speaking that's so archaic and strange. And while it gives a point or a place where everyone can make fun of him, but then he kind of uses that as his sadistic strength in a way. So it's really interesting stuff. Okay, so then back at the GCPD, we get to see Edward Nygma pop up once more in his creepy inability to leave the room when it is socially appropriate, and he does in fact name drop Arkham Asylum when he talks about the ATP chemical that was used to sedate the kidnapped children, which was used at Arkham Asylum. Now at this point in the series, Arkham Asylum has been shut down, but that begs the question, are we going to see the rise of the asylum when the mayor proceeds to begin the Arkham building project, you know, trying to develop that part of the city? Are they going to bring it back, and are we going to have a little party there? I have recently been playing with my brother the Arkham Asylum game, which is super fun, so I'm kind of, you know, I'm sort of antsy for a little bit of that action with the crazies. Not that action. Come on now, don't be weird about it. But yeah, so I am very curious about that. I want to see more of the Riddler's riddling portrayed in the show, but of course at this point he's just kind of looming. You see him in the corner in the window staring eerily. Like, nobody really knows what to do about it, but we know what's going down, or what shall be going down in the future. So then we go back to Fish Mooney's place and the whole conversation that she has with the yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Falcon. Fish, falcon, cat. There's a lot of animal imagery going on here. But yeah, so we're kind of introduced more or less to the idea of Gotham City being a power struggle arena. And then Falcone proceeds to get Fish Mooney's guy, Laszlo, beat up, and she's a little bit frustrated about that. Clears the floor. She herself has a lot of rage. I think that that's definitely a recurring theme in the show so far is that a lot of people have this rage that hasn't quite been honed into a cohesive evil scheme. Everyone's got all this rage and energy, and there's a sense that things are dwindling into chaos and insanity, and it's definitely very pervasive amongst all the characters. Although it seems to me that in the meanwhile, Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle are kind of coming into their own. Everybody else is sort of having a free-for-all, and they're it seems like they're kind of finding themselves at this point. So that's sort of a interesting little balance. The scales are definitely shifting. At any rate, so Fish Mooney but thinly veils her true desires to dispose of Falcone, and she reveals to one of her hitmen that she wants to sink her teeth into this mother brother. And then she's also still railing on the Penguin, who, ironically enough, is still alive and more or less well, and I dare say could use a bit of dental care. But yeah, so he sets himself up in this little rental, and it seems to me like he's trying to get a ransom for this guy that he's kidnapped and stashed in the closet, so he can get the finances with which to gain power in Gotham when he returns. I think that that's kind of part of his game plan. And for those of you who are familiar with the comics, we know that he becomes a gambling master later on. And then, so we get to see where the kids are at in their prison. Jim and Harvey go to question Mooney about the kidnappers, and she hints that there's apparently some buyer overseas looking for recruits, this being the doll maker we discover later on. Still don't know who the guy is or if he is going to have any impact on the rest of the season. I hope so, because otherwise it's just kind of, you know, classic case of the week. Doesn't really make a dent in things, and that's kind of disappointing for me. So we'll see. I still have hope that things are going to be interesting and connecting all around. And then Jim and Barbara have a little fireside chat. Their apartment reminds me a lot of the Wayne Manor in, I forget, it's the Michael Keaton Batman movie. It reminds me a lot of his crib, so that's kind of cool. And so as soon as, like, he shares with Barbara some of these things about his case that he's dealing with, and they're not allowed to leak any information to the press because it's bad PR, and if they can't be constantly on top of things, everybody riots, that kind of thing. And Barbara promptly grabs the phone and tells all to the press, hangs up, and then with her little snarky smile, knows that she's done the right thing, and knows that Jim knows that she's done the right thing and approves of it, despite his, you know, he's trying to play the game. And she is just this, at least around him, she has this desire for everything being above board and in the right, and she wants to know that her fiance is doing the right thing. And we see for the trailer for the season that there's going to be a bit of tension in their relationship as the gal from the Major Crimes Unit tries to plant seeds of doubt in her mind about who Jim really is and who he has to be in the Gotham world. Yeah, but she's, I don't know, Barbara kind of annoys me a little bit so far, but I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what direction her character is taken in, and, you know, what she's hiding, what skeletons she's got in her closet, okay? So then, yeah, we find out that the kidnappers are working for the doll maker, and they are trying to work over their provider, and he references, of course, that the asylum is closed at this point. Things quickly escalate into a huge firefight as Jim and Harvey show up, and Jim, in his heroicness, finds the children and liberates them, even though they're pretty much going to end up in the same situation again later in the episode. And then things take a pretty disturbing turn as the mayor vows to start a, quote, humane but tough love program to deliver the homeless youths to the juvenile services. And there are pretty much everyone's gonna go down one of 3 paths, and the one that Selina Kyle is sent down is, well, she's heading upstate, juvie. In the meantime, this Alfred visits the GCPD, asks for Jim to come over and visit the troubled young lad in his heavy metal music and emo drawings. Definitely triggering thoughts of the emo Batman that we all know and love, and you know, like he appeared in the Lego movie. But anyways. And then Selina Kyle gets on the bus. She is assigned the title of Jane Doe because she refuses to disclose her name, and she insists upon being called simply Cat, which is a precursor to her full title as Catwoman when she becomes the Cat Burglar. And then, of course, we find out that the bus is manned by the Dollmaker's goons. Everybody's pretty much gotten what is the word? Corralled, yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Corralled back into this sinister system that we don't fully understand yet. And that's why I feel like it could still be a part of the rest of the season, because we don't really know what's going on, but it sounds like a pretty big operation, you know? So I don't know if it's just to further show the corruption in Gotham and all of these corporations and governments and groups that are trying to work out arrangements that are ultimately very inhumane and disturbing. But then we get to see her Catwoman powers activate as she stealths her way around, and she's still very young and trying to hone her craft, and she gets caught, but is ultimately rescued, as is everyone else who is going to be shipped away to wherever the crap Candyland they were headed. Then we also get to see the scene where Jim speaks to Bruce about what exactly he is doing to himself, and he says that he's testing himself, and he speaks with Jim, of course, about following his cases and the story about the homeless children, and he tries to discuss ways like, how can I help them? You know, they need a little bit of dough, they need better clothes. And this is just the beginning of Bruce Wayne figuring out the way in which he can help the citizens of Gotham. It's a very, of course, naive way of thinking. All he really knows is his wealth, but he wants to do something good with it. And we know that later on he's going to invest all of that business in a super suit and Batcave and all the, you know, pimping out his place to save the world, but that remains yet to be. And then, of course, Kat comes back into the picture and hints that she's got the scoop on the Wayne's death, revealing that she's been following the boy. And so we'll see what exactly this leads to as far as trying to track down the murderer of the Waynes. And yeah, I mean, that's basically the episode as a whole. Like I said, I really like the idea of Gotham following the post-Wayne family power struggle, and then where Batman is going to enter into that. Now, I thought that I heard that Zaz was going to be introduced in this episode, and he was not, but he definitely is coming according to the season trailer. And my brother and I, we were wondering if he was actually going to make an appearance, because he's an incredibly dark character, and I wrote all this cool stuff I was going to talk about in this vlog, but I'll save it for when Victor actually makes his first appearance. And we also have hints of the Scarecrow, also David Zayas from Dexter. Angel Batista is coming into the game. Very excited about that. Unfortunately, my camera is dying now. I don't really have much time left to discuss the things that we see in the trailer, but I encourage those of you who are curious as to where the show might be headed and wanting to see little glimpses of things to come, check out that trailer and leave your thoughts in the description, alright? So that about does it for me and the things that I have to say. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. You're as fabulous as ever. I feel like there was something else I was gonna say, but I shall indeed wrap things up now. So I'll be back next week. The Walking Dead cometh. So stay around for that. Death and Despair is on the menu, and I'm kind of excited about it. And I hope that you are too. So you guys take care, and I will be back before you know it.